Hello, everyone. Welcome to Higher Self Perspective. I am a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner, and on this channel, we sometimes talk about all things spirituality. So today, I have met up with Mayra Luna from the Arts of Spirituality. She has a podcast on all different platforms. I'll let her tell you a little bit about that, but that's how we originally met. We met on Instagram. I was a guest on her podcast, and we've just kind of kept in touch since. And now it's her turn to come on my show. So, hi, Mayra. How are you?
I'm doing great, Amanda. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming. This is our round two, actually, because the first one recorded with no sound. So she was gracious enough to come back and try for part two. So this one is going to work. I can feel it in my bones. So let's just start off with letting everybody know, who is Mayra. Maybe tell us a little bit about where you're from, and who you are.
So my name is Mayra Luna. I am a spiritual medium. I've seen spirits since early as I could remember. I am the host of the Arts of Spirituality. I'm also initiated into a lot of the ATRs, like the Lukumi tradition and also Valeria. I'm a mom. I'm in the Chicagoland area. And yeah, I'm Hispanic. I'm Mexican. I was born in Mexico, obviously immigrated here. And yeah, that's my little of me, I guess.
Cool.
Um,
I didn't know you were from Mexico. I don't know how maybe that just never came up in conversation, but I've been there like more times than I can count. Where are you from?
I am from Atotonilco, where they make the tequila.
Oh, where the train is.
Yes, yes. See,
Yes.
I was born in Atotonilco. Yes.
Very
Um,
cool.
I don't think a lot of people know because I don't look Mexican enough. I guess you could say I've always been confused with like European or any other nationality other than Mexican. But yeah, I was born in Atotonilco in Mexico.
Very cool. How
Mm.
old were you when you came here?
I was 4. I was really, really tiny. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
But like you're still old enough too to where you can recognize the difference of like that was that a major culture shock for you?
I do remember it kind of being because it was very different. Like um I have a lot of memories of like being with my grandparents. Like we lived like right next to my grandparents. So I do remember like being very attached to my grandpa and stuff like that. And then coming here and you don't really know your neighbors, So it was a culture shock, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
One of my best friends, she's from Guadalajara, and I'd go visit there quite often. But I remember one of the funniest stories she ever told me was because she came around 4 or 5 years old as well, and she learned English from watching cartoons in the morning.
Yeah, I
So
can see that.
I've tried that before with other languages, like picking it up from cartoons, and I'm like, that's incredible because like it just doesn't. I don't know how people can operate that way. I think learning another language is so difficult. Like I studied Spanish for 6 years and French for 3, and I can barely get by in Mexico. Like I can get my food ordered, I can be polite, maybe like conversation, and I probably sound ridiculous too. Um, let's chat a little bit about what that was like for you growing up with abilities. Like, was that something that was normal in your family? Or was there a moment in time where you realized that maybe not everybody is like that?
Um, so it's funny that the conversation of, me migrating here comes up and then, you follow up with that question because I do remember that when I was smaller and I lived in Mexico, I would see a lot of things. Like my mom would say like, "Oh, you always used to see like your friend. You always used to say mi amiguita, my little girlfriend kind of thing." And they couldn't understand what was going on. I guess I like kind of scared them because I was seeing things and they're like they didn't really understand what I was seeing. But they did believe. They did believe that I did see things. It was just more like they didn't know how to nurture the ability or how to go or approach it. So when I moved here, and I think I was maybe like 6 or 7, and they would like tell me about the stories of like me sitting down in the middle of the night talking to my friends and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, it kind of made me a little afraid. Like, what if I start seeing spirits again? Because I feel like we go through a phase where we see them throughout our like um young age, like from like toddler age all the way to like 4 or 5, and then it stops until you get to like your teen years again. Um, so in that phase where I wasn't seeing anything, I was kind of afraid. Like, okay, I know because people have been telling me and people have been like expressing like, oh, you used to see this and you used to experience that and you used to scare us, telling us that you were seeing things and stuff like that. Um, but then, as I grew up, when I became like a teen and I started seeing it again, um, I was it was more like I couldn't find myself anymore in a way because now I was conditioned into like this doesn't happen anymore, like I'm not going through it anymore. Therefore, it's okay. Like we're not gonna see spirits, and then all of a sudden you start seeing spirits again. Um, so it was really hard in teenage years, especially with all the emotions that you go through, all the things that you go through in high school, and
Yeah.
boys and everything, and then going into your
Hormones.
spirituality,
Yeah. Yeah.
hormones and changes, and it's a crucial time in your life because you're trying to figure yourself out, let alone try to figure out what is going on with you. um so I mean, at that time it was like we're looking for a career, we're studying where we're going to go after high school, what we're going to do, and then it's like there's also this aspect. So it took me a while to like find mentors and find people who could resonate because none of my family is like this, so none of them were able to like explain it or help me with it or advise me at that.
Yeah.
So it was kind of hard growing up until I found
So
like a mentor.
okay, so you had to like go outside of the family. You had an interesting story the last time we spoke about the first time you had gone to a healer. Is that right?
Yeah.
Would you tell me a little bit more about that again? Because you were a teenager, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when my abilities came back and I started seeing things, you don't always see like the positive, the love and light. Sometimes you attract the wrong things, depending on like where your energy is at or how you're going about life. But at the time, I was seeing like a darker entity, and I just couldn't take it anymore because I was like, I either was going crazy or I was seeing something, but I needed help. Um, and I'm actually very grateful my parents were open enough to find guidance. Like they knew that if they couldn't fix it, at least they could go with someone. Um, so I ended up going through like a lady that at the time was going through the year ceremony in the Lukumi tradition. There's like a ceremony that you go through for a full year of your initiation. So you get initiated, and for a full year, you have to be in white. You have to like do all sorts of different things in order for you to kind of connect with the Orisha. And she was in that process when I met her. And she's like, and it was so funny because I never believed in like tarot or like readings or any of that. Even though I would experience certain things, I didn't believe in tarot.
Sure.
But when she gave me the reading, she was like, well, you're dealing with this and you're dealing with that, and this is how we could help you. And I was just like, okay, get it
Uh,
away from me, like whatever you could do, just get it away from me. And yeah, she and her husband ended up doing like a cleaning on me. And after that, I was like floating on like clouds. Like I was
I
so
know.
light. I felt so great after it. It felt like it was with me for such a long time that it kind of like was weighing on me.
Yep.
So when it was removed, I was like floating on, on clouds. Like I felt
Yeah.
really, really light. Um, and after that, like she just started helping me with a lot of the things. She's like, you have abilities that you need to like develop, and you need to develop them because these entities are not going to stop coming. So you need to know how to protect yourself. You need to know how to like work with the energy, work with positive energy, make sure you're always protected. And yeah, she started teaching me, she started mentoring me. Eventually I got initiated also in the Lukumi tradition, but it was because of that very moment that she removed that spirit, that I experienced it, that I could say for myself, I felt that, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
You're like, that's real. Okay, that's real. I'm not crazy. Like, I see this, I feel this. And it's so true after, because I do a lot of entity release with hypnosis, and you feel like blissful afterwards, and especially with those ones that have been with you for so long. It's like, I kind of compare it to if you've ever been to the chiropractor the first time you've gone, and like you get out and you're almost like kind of high. Like you're like,
yeah.
you don't realize how much that you were even in that much pain before. And it's the
Mm.
same thing I think with entities that have been with you a long time. You don't realize how much they've weighed you down for so long, because it kind of becomes this symbiotic relationship where you don't know any different. You don't know that it feels different. So that first time you start getting stuff off, you're right. You feel like you're floating. Um,
Mm.
I'm glad that you brought up protection, because um and brought up like how like your frequency and the energies you work with is a really big part of that. What are some things for you with your practice? Myra, one of her modalities is tarot, and she does a lot of ancestral work. We can talk about that a little bit later, but what are some things that you do to clear your space and kind of get in the right frequency when you're about to do you channel as well?
Hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
so like before you channel, to make sure that your space is good, that you're good, you and your client are protected. Can you share with us some of those things?
Um, Everybody will have like different techniques to do it, but I think majority what I do is ground myself. Like a lot of the times we forget that yeah, we could clean our space energetically. We could put crystals, we could do cleansings and stuff like that, but um what we should be focusing on a lot is our mental state. Like your mental state has to be like 100%. That doesn't mean like you can't have like day-to-day anxiety or day-to-day depression or be a human, right?
Right.
Um, but when you are working, especially like if you're gonna do a session with a client or help someone evolve into their spirituality or whatnot, you have to be grounded. Because you don't know what energies are gonna come through.
Mhm.
And a lot of the times those negative energies will feed off of that negative emotion. So if you're not like mentally strong to not allow the thoughts or the energy to penetrate into your actions, like and not cause you to react a certain way or for you to do certain things, um, I think you're the rest just kind of falls as like a plus. Like, okay, now I'm gonna spiritually clean my area. Now I'm gonna like do my venerations to make sure that my ancestors are protecting me, my spirit guides are protecting me. Um, so a lot of the times it's like sitting in meditation, grounding myself, asking for, extra protection, and just cleaning my head. And then obviously like either incense that incorporates incense or like the windows and the doors kind of thing. So nothing like comes in. Um, or just like creating like a energy bubble, like as a protection.
Yeah.
Um, I I
I
think
love my
that
bubbles.
yeah.
The bubbles.
At first it was so hard for me to do those bubbles because I couldn't focus enough, but then eventually like I was able to make the bubbles big enough for the whole house. And I was like, oh, this is great. So now I do it for like the car, and I do it like if I'm in
Me
in
too.
certain areas, and it's just it's like something easy that you don't need tools to just do it.
Yeah.
because it's all like mind. So taking care of your mental health is like it's very crucial for that.
Yeah, because I think your mental health affects your just your general frequency and well-being, right? I love that you said grounding too, because I don't think that that's spoken enough about when we're talking about like spiritual hygiene.
Hmm.
Because when you're grounded and you can really like plug into Gaia and like really lean on that energy and you feel like solid and centered and secure, it's much easier to like stay away from the frequency of fear too. Like there's a confidence in it almost of where like Gaia's got your back. Like you are
Hmm.
plugged into the earth and nothing can shake you. It reminds me of, I mean, grounding is a perfect word for it. It reminds me of like a tree, like solidly rooted into the earth and nothing can shake you, you know? And then all the other stuff is just whatever I think you feel like for the day, whatever speaks to you. Are you kind of like that? Or do you have like a specific like set of steps that you do every day kind of a thing?
I don't have like an actual set in stone ritual that I do. Like it's just based on like the energies. I'm sure that you kind of know like when you're gonna deal with a certain client, like you already automatically know, oh, for this client, I'm gonna need like extra things or need specific things. So it's just like based on the intuition, the day, the energy. Um, so it's not like the only thing that I could say, I guess you could say that it is for sure, like in every session that I do,
Mhm.
is the veneration towards like my ancestors and my spirit guides. For
Okay.
that, I always call on them to come and protect us, come and guide us, and be here
Yeah.
throughout the sessions.
They, like just gather around you and all right, everybody in position. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the one thing you definitely do every time before sessions or before any of your spiritual practices is call on your team and your ancestors and your guides. A lot of what I do kind of can fall into that category as well. I think a lot of my clients are cycle breakers. A lot of them, it's very common that when we get them into the garden and hypnosis and start calling forth some of their team, a lot of times their ancestors will show up and help them release like these generational curses or ancestral traumas. And it's incredible because they'll describe how they see everybody line up and it'll be like they're like, I don't even know who that person is, but I can feel that they're part of me. And they all come together and do it together. And sometimes there will be even like shackles on everyone.
Mm,
One time there were cages around each person, and so
mm,
the client was in the garden and I was like, look in your hands, there's going to be a key. And they found a key there and they unlocked each of the cages and
beautiful.
one by one, yeah, set everybody free. So I'd love to hear a little bit. I've never had a session with her before, but I really want one. I'm very into this topic. So I'm curious to learn more about what it is that you do.
So, I usually focus a lot on helping others, one, know their team because I feel like when you become spiritual, it doesn't matter in what section of spirituality you're in or what religion or what practice. I think that is in every single one of them, it carries a lot of like you doing things with your spirit guides and doing things with your ancestors. But a lot of people, when they start, since they don't know who their ancestors are, since they don't know who their spirit guides are, that's where I step in. So, a lot of the times, because I am a medium, I see a lot of like spirit guides, I see a lot of like ancestors. Um, and most of the time, they're there with you for such a long time that when they do encounter like a medium or they encounter someone that could see them, they're just like, this, and that, like you missed all of this. And a lot of the times, like, especially in my belief system, is that we're assigned a lot of like the spirit guides. Like, for example, you'll have like different spirit guides that have different types of professions in a way. Um, all kind of depending on your lifestyle, like who you are, your personality. Why? Because I may have to go to the dentist a lot more than you would have to go to the dentist. So guess what? Like in essence, right? As an example, I'm gonna have more dentist spirit guides. Not that you will have like dentist spirit guides, but you know what I'm saying. And like as an example, so if you're dealing with a lot of scenarios that come up a lot in your life, whether you're having like issues with fertility, or you're having issues with your love life, or you have issues with, you know, your friends betraying you, kind of thing, you're always gonna have a spirit guide that is pretty much assigned to that problem. And a lot of the times when I do sessions, they'll come up and they'll come up saying, this is how this person could work with me. Well, how can they work with you? Well, if she needs to go to the dentist, she could call on to me, kind of thing. So um that's kind of what I do. And then with your ancestors, a lot of the time they are here, like you mentioned, like to break generational traumas. And then kind of we have to see it as like our grandparents, right? Our grandparents are going to always going to be like, yes, do better than we did, like this is the mistakes
Yeah.
I did, therefore you shouldn't do them, kind of thing. In my belief system, we have where we are in top of their foundations. So like everything that they have built, we're in top of that. Like let's just think back to like the way that we do things, like electricity and our houses and, you know, economy, like all of that came from our ancestors. That's all their work. So therefore
Yeah.
we're walking in their work. The even to like the sidewalks, someone had to come up with it. Well, guess what? That was your ancestor, kind of thing, you know?
Right.
So a lot of the things with ancestors have a lot to do with that. Like you're walking in a path where you're walking in their foundation, but you're being better, like you're evolving into something better. And when it comes to our ancestor veneration, it's like a give and take. A lot of the times our ancestors get stuck, not reaching the light or not reaching that dimension where essentially they become like spirit guides. So they're kind of like one or two tiers down. So therefore, like that ancestor veneration helps them also evolve. Why? Because they want their blood to progress. They want their blood to like expand or do better, or you know, not do what they did or not did, you know. I think
Okay.
a lot of the times when I encounter generational breakers, if it's a woman, most of the time it's like you standing up for yourself. Why? Because women back in the day, they couldn't stand up for themselves. They couldn't do a lot of the things that we're doing now. But if our great great grandma could look at us now wearing pants and, you know, wearing a shirt that shows your shoulders, kind of thing, what would they say?
Yeah.
And some of them are more like, good for you, you know, you do what you got to do, don't depend on a man, kind of thing. But that's the trauma that they're going through as well. So you have like you mentioned, you break those generational traumas, but you're evolving. So now it's like woman power, but how do we use this woman power, you know? So it's a give and take relationship with your ancestors. And I think for me it's one of the like, I love ancestor veneration because you get to see, once they elevate, you get to see the difference between an elevated ancestor and a non-elevated ancestor. And when they get elevated, you just pretty much like one up your whole family, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Do you kind of do it together with them? So are they helping you in order for their soul to evolve as well? And do you kind of rise up with them? Like you guys kind of do it together?
yeah. I guess I'll share like an example. I had a client that I was working with her for a while, and one of her ancestors was a her great grandfather. She didn't meet the man, but she heard stories of him. And at first, you know, she was Argentinian, so she, you know, her great grandfather was, you know, not the best, um how can I say, like how men were in back in the day, you know, like the woman has to be in the kitchen, kind of thing, and stuff like that. And he had to adjust to her
Mm,
being able to work for herself, being able to have her money. So it was like a constant like battle between her great grandfather and her. because
Okay.
he was more like, no, women don't do those things and women don't, and
Yeah.
once he started like understanding that times are changing and it's okay for a woman to be working, it's okay for a woman to like have her own money, her own career and stuff like that, he changed into being her advisor. Like she started a business and now he is her advisor. Like she goes to him for
Wow.
advice on her business. And I think like those scenarios, I think they're beautiful because now she comes with a team that is backing her up. Like
Yeah.
what bigger blessing than having your great grandfather back you up in your business, have your back and help you with all of these things that he himself had knowledge of. But at first he didn't want to work with you because he didn't understand the position that you were in. Um, so
No, I
scenarios like that.
I think I kind of that example you gave was great. It helped me understand more maybe what the difference is between specifically working with your ancestors versus like a spirit guide.
Mhm.
Because so sometimes your ancestors, are you saying they can kind of still be very much so connected to their life of who they were when they were your relative, and
Mhm.
they're kind of still in this earth plane? Um, is it that they have a bit of unfinished business, or sometimes why aren't they crossing over into the light? Because if they were to cross over, I guess they wouldn't really be here anymore unless you called upon them. Can you explain a little bit about how that works?
Yeah.
Especially when you're like maybe butting heads
Yeah.
with an ancestor like that.
So we have to think of like we have to make it, I'm gonna make it a little bit simple but complex at the same time. So I'm sorry.
Okay.
Um we
Okay.
have to think of it like as a consciousness, right? Everybody's a conscious mind. So if you pass and your mind was not elevated, was not conscious, was not self-aware, was not trying to progress, you're
Mhm.
stuck on that same consciousness. Even though it's like you're no longer in a body, but you're transferring energy to somewhere else, your conscious is still the same. So this is where the ancestors that are not elevated are stuck in. So
Mhm.
when we have the term like has not reached light, has not, gone to where they need to be at, they're not resting properly, to us or to me, it's like they haven't reached that elevation of consciousness. Because once they reach that elevation and their consciousness expands into being self-aware and almost like going through like an awakening. If they never went through an awakening in their human experience, well, their consciousness never did. So therefore you kind of have to like walk them through that experience in order for them to be conscious enough to be in a different mindset, in a different dimension. um so was that too complex?
No, no, I think that no, that definitely explains it. There have been some instances, and it's actually a bit more common than I would have maybe expected it to be before I got started with the work that I'm currently doing. Um, Sometimes a client will think that they have entity attachments, and they do, but when we get in there and, move over the ego and kind of dig into that subconscious and start communicating with what is attached to them, sometimes it ends up being one of their loved ones.
Mhm.
And they're not doing it on purpose, but they are actually attached to their aura or one of their energy centers, and they're sucking like the energy out of them. And it's because they something happened where they get lost or confused. They don't go into the light. A lot of times they maybe didn't lead the life that they thought they were supposed to and are fearful of, like quote unquote hell or being punished when they cross over. And so they stay attached, or sometimes they want to, let's say, like a parent passes away while the child is still young. And so they
Mhm.
stay behind to protect them, but accidentally latch onto them. And it starts causing all of these physical issues, emotional issues for that
Mhm.
person. Um, But is what you're describing different? Like they're not actually attached to the person. They're there because they both need to learn something from each other?
I think it's both. I think that when we think of like an elevated ancestor or like someone who has gone through an awakening,
Mhm.
most of the time, as a human, let's speak on like as a human, like as an example, like us, if you've gone through an awakening and you're okay with like everything that you went through and all the things that have gone through, you're gonna understand that death was part of your mission, part of the things that you're going through.
Yeah.
But then when you become selfish, because I think a lot of the times we think, oh, they're here to protect the person, but what we're not realizing is like when we do something for someone, we're also doing it for ourselves. So that's where like the consciousness never evolved into being like selfless and then like also not attaching
Mm.
to anything, because a lot of the times where when someone passes and they stay and they want to protect someone,
Mhm.
you know very well they're going to be a little bit possessive too. They could turn into the more like it could grow into obsession.
Mhm.
So yes, I
I've seen them turn into like at first I almost think that they're more of like a demonic entity because
mm-hmm,
they start they start like just turning into this really dark, heavy, negative energy. And then once we actually get in there and speak to that spirit,
mm-hmm.
like, no, I was your uncle, like I was your
Yeah,
mom. But at first, the way they're talking and like the frequency they resonate with is very, very dense. And so I can see how that happens. And
yeah,
yeah, yeah, something happened there. But and we usually like get to the bottom of it. Like sometimes I almost think that I'm like a therapist for these entities just as
yeah.
much as the client. Do you find that in sessions that sometimes when you find the ones who haven't quite evolved yet, that you kind of have to explain things to them and let them know what's going on? Are they just as confused
Yes,
as the living human sometimes?
yes. A lot of the times when I do encounter them, my own spirit guides, my own team is like, well, the person, your client has to sit with them for X amount of time and have coffee, calm them down, talk to them. And this is where the veneration comes in. This is where the you putting coffee out for your ancestors, you putting out water for your ancestors, you putting certain things. Why? Because you're trying to calm them down. You're trying to have a relationship. You're trying
Ah,
to like bring them down enough so they could understand you and they get to know you. So I always tell my clients like, what do you do when you're having an issue with a friend? Hey, let's talk it over coffee.
okay.
You know?
Okay.
That's the same thing
Yeah.
you have to do with your ancestors. If there's like an issue, um I don't usually do the work for them. I have the client do it for themselves. Why? Because they need that connection. Like,
Yeah.
hey, sit down, venerate your ancestor, talk to him or her every single day. Hey, here's your coffee. Let's have coffee. Hey, by the way, like this is what I'm doing and the reason why I'm doing it. And please don't be upset. Like I have the greatest intentions and stuff like that. And then things start changing. Why? Because it's almost like you are making them realize like in your practice like it's Amanda are making them realize like there's a change happening and things are happening.
Yeah.
um in my practice it's more like I help my client do it themselves kind of thing, like
Yeah.
you build that connection with them, you convince them that it's okay or that they could let go or whatever the case is.
Sure.
So that's veneration, that's like you venerating your ancestors.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I always wondered, I thought it was just always like you were paying respect maybe to the spirits around you, but it makes sense that there's just I was just watching this recently and it's a Buddhist practice too, where you leave like fruit and like very 3D human things out for the spirit of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And um So that makes sense. Like and I was always like, why do they need to appease them? Can't they just be like, hey, I'll come in peace. But I guess if you're like dealing with earthbound spirits that are, because you guys are interacting, I feel everything is so divinely timed. And you
Mhm.
are supposed to be interacting for a reason. They're still here for a reason. You guys might have agreed upon something before you even came here. But you both have forgotten what that is, and you're both trying to figure it out. As
Mhm.
opposed to like your spirit guides who they've already crossed over, they've already, they're coming back because you're calling upon them. They're keeping an eye on you, kind of like I know we all have different beliefs, but how I would think like my angels keep an eye on me, that would
Mhm.
also be your spirit guides. But what you're saying, like with ancestors, it's a little more earthbound.
Mhm.
Like they almost have like some unfinished business. Like you guys have some stuff you're supposed to work on together. Would you say that? Like you guys probably had a plan together?
Yeah, I genuinely believe like all our ancestors have something to teach us regardless.
Yeah.
Because of the whole situation that you evolve. Like there's a lot of things that it's like, to me it's like getting that advice from your great grandfather that is so knowledgeable, like that knows why you shouldn't do certain things because of the experience.
Mhm.
And then vice versa, like you're teaching them how to use a phone kind of thing, like you're teaching them modern world, but you're also getting taught like life lessons that you wouldn't have learned unless you experienced them.
Yeah.
um so yeah, I it's like an even exchange, but it's like learning from both ends. Don't forget your traditions. Don't forget the things that you used to do, how we used to do them. Are the mistakes that I did. Don't do them so you could progress.
Right.
And then vice versa. Like, okay, great grandfather, like it's time for you to evolve. It's time for you to move forward. Like, this is how you could do it.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's so important right now too, because I feel like we're getting farther and farther away from tradition.
mhm,
Especially like as all these, especially in the US too, all these different cultures, you immigrated here, you understand probably the difficulties of holding on to traditions from the country that your parents are from. Like, I think I'm second or third generation American, and I don't speak any German. Like
mm,
I don't speak any of the Nordic languages. And so and that only took two generations. So
yeah.
that would be like really cool to connect back in with them, and like what are some things that we have forgotten? What are some things that would probably that we need to bring back in? But then at the same time, like they're here as a spirit, seeing what like this modern day life is and watching this massive spiritual awakening. So they clearly have forgotten because they never went through it because they're still
Mhm.
here, and they almost get to live vicariously through us and see what that whole process is like. It's kind of cool if
Yeah.
you think about it. Yeah. What would a session be like with you? I know you do some tarot with it.
Mhm.
Um, if I were to book and come hang out with you tomorrow, what would we do together?
Well, first I look into 5 aspects of your life. So I look into your family life, your love life, your finances slash career, your energetic field, and your spirituality. And then from there, we go into like the session with your spirit guides. And a lot of the time they're already telling me like, okay, this is happening in her love life, and I don't agree with this, and I don't agree with that, and this should be this, and this should be that, or issues in like the energetic field, like if you're dealing with like a um let's say that you have a problem with your solar plex or your solar plex chakra point. You might be having issues with the stomach. It might be very severe, or things are happening very intense in that area, so they're already advising like she should go to the doctor, or she should eat better, or this is what's going on kind of thing. So the energetic field, they also advise on that, and your spirituality too. So a lot of the times when I'm going through the sections, the spirit guides will speak, and then and then afterwards they will have like the full um like message. Like I'll be like, okay, who's here? What is the message? How can this person work with you? How can this person help you elevate if you need to be elevated? And not just like ancestors come up, but also like if you're working with like you mentioned angels, right? I've
Mhm.
had like archangels like show up in readings. And I don't like, I deal with like Archangel Michael, he's always in my practice, Archangel Raphael, he's always in my practice as well. And the
Okay.
usually the entities or like the archangels, the spirit guides, they're usually going to give you the message that their profession is in. Like Archangel Michael is always going to tell you things about like justice and you going through something very tough and defeating evil kind of thing. And
Yeah.
those are the messages that he's going to give you. Archangel Raphael deals a lot with like health issues and so on and so forth. So they're going to give you messages that are in his are in their profession, I guess you could say. um so when they give the messages, some of the times it's a lot more profound than when you get a tarot reading, because they're gonna show me things
Mhm.
that they have seen from you.
Okay.
So almost like to validate that they're like validate their existence. Like, hey, you could tell her that I've been with her in this specific scenario. Like, does she remember when she was crying at the ocean and she was crying because of like a loss or whatever the
So
case
it's so
is?
they yeah, so they listen. You're
Yeah,
like, "Oh, shoot. Oh, yeah, they are keeping an eye on me.
exactly.
Okay." And you're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah."
And a lot of the times like we'll tell her that I've been there, that I was there, that if she saw like the turtle that was coming up, that was me, like that was me trying to like help her, kind of thing. So
Do you, like, completely blow people's minds?
yeah, I've had sessions where like people are like crying, I'm crying with
Oh,
them.
I love
It's
that.
very, yeah, it's very emotional because I think we're always looking for a source, like a source that something's guiding us, that something's with us, that something's protecting us,
Yeah,
especially when we're so vulnerable that we don't think nothing's with us, like no one's answering our prayers kind of thing.
right.
And when we get this and when we get the whole hey, I've been here in this scenario, this is how I manifested, do you remember? You're just like, oh my god, they've been with me forever, they've been with
Yeah,
me in scenarios that I didn't think they no one was with me.
right.
So yeah, I think it's a really nice experience, like connecting, and then it just builds from there. Then eventually if you see a turtle again and it's acting a certain way, it's your spirit guide, or it's manifesting again. And you're building that relationship. So
Yeah. I think we're always kind of it's not necessarily that we need validation, but you're right, sometimes this journey can feel really lonely,
mhm,
and, I think people who have chosen a spiritual path generally have also chosen a tough life.
mhm,
And so we have a lot of inner work to do, a lot of healing and going through that process. It's definitely not for the faint of heart. And so sometimes just getting like those little signs or even having a session with someone like you and having those moments of validation where you're reminded that even though you know in your heart they are not alone, right? And I'm
mhm,
sure you get signs here and there, especially if you're open and you're looking for them. But to actually have like a message come forward and for it to be so specific that, like, hey, yeah, we always got our eye on you, kind of a thing. I think there's something that it's like relieving. It's relieving. Like, okay, I'm not
mhm,
at this alone. And I think everybody on a spiritual path and who's going through like the ups and downs of the healing process can use it. Like we all could use a little like high five, a pat on the
mhm,
back, like, and just to know, even though you feel it maybe, but just to know specifically or to get a verbal message. Like sometimes in sessions, I'll ask um, the client's team, like if we're speaking to somebody specifically, like, can you tell us how you're going to show yourself to them over the next few
Mm.
days. Because I asked them to continue the healing over the next 3, because all healing is self-healing in my sessions. I'm just kind of there to kind of push them in the right
Yeah.
direction, right? They're all doing the work themselves, but um it's so awesome like having a client come back and they're like, a deer was in my backyard and it had like a little
Oh.
baby fawn with it, and
Oh.
or I saw the blue jay or I saw the hummingbird or a butterfly landed on my dog's
Yeah.
nose, and that was
Yeah.
specifically what they were told to look for and remind.
Wow.
That's them visiting, or even like somebody's mother who's passed away. I
Mhm.
will come back as like this specific bird, and they're like, they came, they said hi, they were out my kitchen window, and we
Yeah.
all need that. We really
Yeah.
do. Like it makes this sometimes tough road a bit easier. Um, so to book with you, I'm gonna put a link in the description of this video. Um, what sort of sessions do you offer? Like, if I share the link, what can they look forward to?
So I offer just a general reading. The general reading is just tarot basic advice on tarot and the situations that you're going through. And then I have the tarot plus the spirit guide reading, which is like the advice of tarot, but also the advice that your ancestors, spirit guides are coming in the specific scenario that you're in. And I also have which I call like the top tier or whatnot, which is you getting to know your spirit team and know how you could work with them and your abilities. So in that session, you'll learn like what is the prominent ability that you have and how to evolve it. That one's a little bit of a longer session, but we have to go over like what abilities you have, what blockages you have, what spirit guides and what they want from you, and how can you like either venerate them or like work with them or call on them for specific scenarios. So for right now, those are the three services that I have.
Cool. All right. I'll definitely link that below. I feel like we're probably coming towards an end here, but is there anything that you wanted to chat about today? Like, is there something that maybe, like, if the roles were reversed and you
Mhm.
could ask yourself a question to share the answer with everybody, like, what should I have asked you that I didn't ask you? What would you like to chat about?
If I was to ask myself a question while being interviewed is um what would be my best advice for someone who wants to have a connection with their ancestors? My best advice for someone who is starting, and I know sometimes you may not be able to get like a reading or financial there financially you might not be able to book with someone, or financially or whatever the case is that you might have, that you may not be able to find a medium to help you guide you and you want to build this connection. The best thing that you could do is start from learning your ancestry. Start from learning where you
Mm,
came from and what kind of things that does that culture do. And believe it or not, a lot of the times when you are trying to work with them, a lot of food is involved.
mm.
Like especially think about like gathering. How would you have a family gathering, a family
There's
reunion?
always food.
There's always food.
Always. That's how you get the people to show up.
Exactly, exactly. So how
I
do
guess
you
it's how
want
you get. That makes so much
ancestors?
sense.
Same
Yeah.
thing.
Huh.
Same thing. But know that a lot of the times they're not gonna want mac and cheese. They're not gonna want pizza. They're gonna want what they were eating. So learning about yourself, learning about like your
Okay.
ancestry, learning about like, well, unless you're Italian, they probably want
Right.
pizza, but you know, but
Not like frozen pizza though. Like go.
yes, homemade pizza.
Yeah.
Don't offend your spirit guides or your ancestors trying to give them
Yes.
something that's like,
Don't
from the
give your
microwave.
dead grandmother another heart attack. Like,
Yeah, no, no kidding, no
what is
kidding.
this?
Exactly. You might get hit on the side of the head.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh my
so that
gosh, I'll have to tell you a really funny story before we go, but go ahead, finish
yeah.
what you're saying. That's
So that's the best way that you could do for to connect. Learn your ancestry, learn what your ancestors a lot of cultures already like do a lot of like ancestry veneration without realizing that they're doing it. But a lot of the traditions that we're doing, like you mentioned, Chinese people, they put out prayers, they put out things. Why? Because subconsciously they're still venerating their ancestors. They're still venerating some sort of like spirit.
Mhm.
Mexican tradition, you have Dia del Muerto, you're still venerating your ancestors, you're still venerating the things. Getting to know your roots, getting to know your ancestry, and yeah, make them a homemade pasta, make them a homemade mole, or
Coffee,
empanadas.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Things that
Um,
like that you can like smell it and yeah.
yes, yes. Wake them up with a little bit of like, especially because they're gonna appreciate it. They're gonna appreciate the effort.
Yeah.
So,
I always wondered, I'm like, would that make them sad because they like they can't eat it or they can't like smoke that
um,
cigar or
believe it or not, everything has energy. Yeah, everything has energy. The way that they eat the food is literally sucking up the energy. Same thing with like cooking. Think of all the ingredients that go into cooking. So you're building an energy. Like chicken soup. Chicken soup's all about like making you feel better. Why? All of these ingredients that go in there that are supposed to like make you feel better, like cleanse you and stuff like that. Um, so what they're eating is like the energy of the food. So that's why it's always
when we like we do the physical and the energy, they get all the energy. Because I'm even
yes.
thinking of like when we use essential oils or like flower essence. Right now I'm on a protocol of all holistic medicine. And so it's literally the essence and the energy of those plants that are healing you. It's a gift from the plants.
Yeah.
But they don't actually have to like chew, swallow, and digest. They just have to like suck it all up.
Absorb the energy.
Yeah.
And you'll see it. Like if you put out a plate out for them, you'll see that it almost looks like it was like airtight,
Huh.
like the air was sucked out of it. With
Yeah.
coffee, you'll see the same thing. You'll see like it like go down a little bit because they absorb it. They absorb the energy from it. So
That is wild.
yes.
Okay, so I have to tell you this story now that now that we're talking about because you said grandmother smack you in the head. My sister and my grandmother loved the Green Bay Packers. You know who that is. You're from Chicago. We're rivalries when it comes to football. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know if
yeah.
Myra watches football or not,
I
but
do.
my sister and I, and it's my sister's wife and my partner, we were all watching a Packers game. I think my partner was upstairs, but we were like joking around. I think we are talking about my grandmother, and then we were kind of like talking shit. and and while we were talking about my grandmother, and I think we were laughing about her, like I had her ashes out and like a picture of her when she's a baby. And I'm like, great, you're gonna watch the Packer game with us, right? Like her ashes are spread at Lambeau Field. Like it's a whole thing. Like everybody had to wear Green Bay stuff to her funeral. It's a little
Wow.
but we were like just joking around with her the whole time. And I can't remember what somebody said, but all of a sudden, a fork flies off of one of our plates and across the room and like lands in front of us. And we all just went, "Stop."
Sorry, grandma.
And it was, but then after like the shock of it, we all just were dying of laughter.
Wow.
Yeah. But
Wow.
she would be like, she's on my team. But she would totally be the grandmother in the afterlife to come back and just like bop you in the head. Shut your mouth.
And it does happen. It does happen.
It
So,
does. It does for sure. Um, that was a really great question that you asked yourself. I
yeah.
appreciate that. So yeah, you can start the work yourself. Where can we find you on social media if anyone wants to follow your work and get to know you more?
I am on TikTok and Instagram for now as Mayra Luna.
Okay.
Um, that I'm not on any other platform just yet. But eventually we'll be on YouTube and on on Facebook, but for right now it's only Instagram and TikTok.
And her TikTok is like you're really active on there, aren't you?
I try to be as much as I can.
Yeah.
There's periods of times where I'm like I slow down a little bit when I have enough social media.
Mhm.
Um so yeah, but I am more active on TikTok.
There's for everybody watching there, if you want to explore more any of these subject areas, she breaks it down on TikTok. You'll feel like she's actually speaking to you. She will kind of like do these mini deep dives in all these different subjects, and she takes the time and answers questions as well, so people can kind of leave questions in the comment section, and she'll make a little video about it. So if you want to start deep diving into ancestral stuff and some of the traditions that she practices, I would highly recommend her TikTok. Um, I'm not on Instagram very much, so I don't really have much to say about the Instagram one, but I do check you out on the TikTok machine. Um, Myra, it was a pleasure. It's
Absolutely. Same
always
here.
it's fun hanging out with you. Seriously, we live so close to each other. Like
I
this
know.
have met for a reason. I really think that we need to meet in person one day and go do something
Yes.
fun, either in Milwaukee or do it in Chicago. I haven't been
Whatever
to
you like.
Chicago in so long.
There's so many food festivals coming up
I
that
know. Here too,
yeah.
Summerfest. Yeah, I used to live in Lincoln Park, like literally, like right on the border of Lakeview, and I would run like Michigan every day. Like I would
Wow.
walk to Lincoln Park Zoo and go hang out with
Yeah.
the otters and the polar bear every day. That
Aw.
was like my zen. Go run off all the stress from the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aw.
So I miss the city. I never get there because well, I like live in the middle of the woods now. I don't really go anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
But
whatever you like. If you want to come or if you want me to go,
yeah, I think
whatever you
we
like.
should meet up and let's do a session soon too. Um, well, it was here. Thank you very much, and I really appreciate you doing a second interview. I was like,
Absolutely.
she was double checking. I think just checking in like how it went, or maybe when I was gonna post the interview, and I was like, I have the video, but there's no sound.
I
It's
knew.
just like
Yeah.
mouths moving.
And
So
things happen for a reason. So
yeah,
and the message was not supposed to be delivered just yet.
yeah, I liked our flow today. I loved everything we talked about too. I'm sure we could talk for like hours,
Yeah,
and just
absolutely.
like deep dive on, you know, spirits, ancestors,
Everything.
entities. Yes. I'm very curious about because you mentioned briefly in the beginning when we were talking about like when you were younger and shutting off your abilities. That's another really common thing I find with
Mhm.
clients. They were either something really scared them or they were maybe like shamed for it and
Mhm.
they turned it off. And when all this stuff starts coming up again, it can kind of they think they have attachments or like their life completely flips upside down or they go through their dark night of the soul. And then so they come into session and then their guides start working with them and they're like, okay, we're gonna start bringing you upgrades. We're gonna start turning these gifts back online.
Mhm.
And one of the things I always ask, I'm like, can you show them how to turn it up and down? Because sometimes they will like completely burst open the third eye, and then
Yeah.
it's really overwhelming at first. And I'm like, wait, can you? Because I think they forget. I think
Yeah.
our teams forget how real this earthly experience feels. Like to them, this is just an experience, and they can kind of live vicariously through us, through the collective. And no, you guys, this stuff feels really real. You can't
Yeah.
just like burst open like all of everybody's abilities
Yeah.
and without us having a nervous breakdown. So I don't really know where I was going with that. But yeah, I hear that a lot too, where like people have like completely shut down their abilities when they're kids. I think a
Yeah.
lot of times because they're scared, they see stuff that
Yeah.
no one else sees, and then no one believes them too. So all right, Myra, I think it is time to say goodbye. It's really has been a pleasure. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Yes, of course, Amanda. Thank you so much for having me. I love to talk about like all of this, you know that.
Yeah.
So
All of this all the time, for sure.
yeah. Thank you for sharing all your guidance and doing this, you know. We need more people sharing.
Yeah, thank you. I think everything that you do like really goes hand in hand with um, the way I kind of see things too. And not that we need to always think alike. I think it's even more beautiful when you don't always see things from
Mm-hmm.
the same perspective. But I like that too, because you and I have very different approaches to like with the modalities that we work with. And like I think I work with a certain kind of energy, you work with a certain kind of energy. And I think that's beautiful. That's the whole point of coming here is to experience all these different things and to learn how to kind of use them together, you
Yeah.
know? It's all the same shit. It is.
Right. Right.
We just give it different names
Right.
and it's all the same stuff, but I guess it's just how we see it. So you are a beautiful soul, and I'm so happy that you
Mm.
reached out to me on Instagram months
I
ago.
know.
And you guys check out her podcast too. I will link that below where you can find her. What platforms are your podcasts on again? I know it's on
I
Apple, right?
It's on Apple Podcasts, it's on Spotify, it's on Google, it's now on Amazon Music.
Ooh.
So we're trying to get out there, make it accessible to everyone.
How
Yeah.
many episodes are you at now?
I am at episode 52. So
Dang, girl, you are busy.
it
I've got like 8 videos on YouTube.
it will get there. It will get there, but
It'll
I've been
get
doing it
there.
for like a year, so it will get there.
Nice.
It's
So
a really big thing.
you're doing like an episode a week then.
I was doing an episode a week, and
Yeah.
then I decided that when it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
I never like to force anything, especially because then it becomes ungenuine. Like
Yeah. You lose your
then you're
creativity
forced
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
you forcefully have to like push out content, and then you kind of lose yourself in that. So it's when the magic happens, then I'm like, okay, time to turn on the mic.
Starts to suck your soul, I think, when you
Yes.
force it, because it like there's a slippery slope with social media. And I would consider podcast social media too.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Once again, see, we
I
could
know
just
we don't
like
want to
keep
leave.
talking and talking and talking. All
Yeah.
right, Mayra. You have a great evening, and I will get this out on the internet machine soon, and I'll
Mhm.
talk to you soon.
Thank you, Amanda.
Bye,
Big hug.
lady.
Bye.
Yes.
Have a good one.
Mwah.
Bye.
Bye.